everyone. Welcome to Gardening for Better Health. This is Henry B. 723 coming to you today from my kitchen. I wanted to say hello. I'm in the kitchen and I'm about to start doing some canning, and I thought I'd bring you along. I hope everyone there is well, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. This is a video that I'm doing to answer the question that I'm getting from some of my viewers. Can you pressure can quail? Most people know that I do have some quail. I bought them over a year ago. I started with my quail, and I get eggs from them. I get quite a few eggs from them. They're good layers, and because they're indoors, they don't go outside at all. They live in their area of my home, so they won't catch any bird flu or anything like that. They're indoors all the time, and so they're well taken care of. Their eggs are excellent. Quail eggs are very small, but they taste just like chicken eggs. So where you may buy eggs from chickens and you normally eat, say, 2 eggs for breakfast, a quail egg is so small it takes 4 of them to equal 1 chicken egg. But that's okay because they're really good layers, and it doesn't cost me anything to get their eggs. As you know now, things in the stores in terms of buying chicken eggs are just astronomically high. So I feel very fortunate that I do have the quail and that I do get a good supply of eggs from them to help feed my family. Another good benefit of quail is they are good meat birds. You can use them for eggs, or you can use them for meat, or a combination of both. And so after I got used to working with the quail, I learned how to butcher them so that I can have quail for meat as well. That was a process because I'm not originally from the country, and butchering anything just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. But that's how we get our meat. The people who have cattle, the people who have chickens, in order to get chicken meat, you have to butcher the animal, and you have to deal with the animal, make sure the animal is healthy and lives a good life as long as they're allowed to live, and then be appreciative of the sacrifice that they make so that we will have meat to eat. So that's a change in mindset that I had to adopt when I decided to have them not just for eggs but for meat as well. People have been asking, well, you can pressure can chicken, can you pressure can quail? The answer is you can. You won't find it in any of the books that, like the Complete Guide to Home Canning. You're not going to find a specific reference in there for quail, but you do find a specific reference in there for chickens and rabbits, for those people who like rabbit. So you can pressure can chicken. Chicken is poultry. Quail is poultry. So you would pressure can quail just like you can pressure can chicken, except the quail is much smaller than the chicken. So that's how I answer that question. I have been pressure canning my quail so that I will have poultry on the shelf. I don't have chickens, so because I don't have chickens, I do have the quail for eggs and meat, and I do pressure can my quail when I decide to process. Sometimes I'll do a butchering and I'll put them in the freezer, and I've gotten to the point where I need to clean out my freezer, reduce things that are in there. So today I'm going to be pressure canning some quail. This is not an approved recipe, as I said, but they do tell you that you can pressure can poultry, and that's how I'm going to do this, like the same way I would poultry. Now in this book that I have, it's my All-American instruction guide, and my canner is an All-American canner, and in here it says chicken or rabbit. You can pressure can those, and you can pressure can them with or without the bones. So I'm going to be pressure canning my quail with the bones because they're small. If I were not pressure canning them and I was, say, cooking them, say, for dinner, I could bake them, I could barbecue them, I could fry them just like you would chicken. So I'm going to be canning these up, and because you can do the bones as well, and the quail are very small, I don't need to cut them up because they're small enough so that the heat can properly penetrate throughout the quail. And I'll show you one so you can see what I'm talking about. Got them cooling over here in this, and this is the size of a quail. I'll bring this closer. As you can see, once they're butchered, they're very, very small. They're just slightly smaller than a Cornish hen, if you know what a Cornish hen is. This is even a little bit smaller than a Cornish hen. So it's very little, and it's very easy for the heat to penetrate through here because it's not a whole lot to them. Most people, when they eat quail with their dinner, they eat 1 or 2 quail with their meal. And so that's how I'm going to be canning them up. I'm going to can 2 quail to 1 quart jar. And that way, when we need to take a jar off the shelf for dinner, that'll be enough for 1 or 2 people from that 1 jar. And I'm going to be using quarts. So as you can see, I can put this one down, and I can take the second one, and instead of having it face down, I can face it up. And that's 1 full jar. Okay? It's real easy to do, and as they say with poultry, you can can it bone in or bone out if you want to. And I'm choosing to do this bone in. So to do 2 quail per quart is just the right size to fill this jar as far as I want it to be filled. So that's 2. Down. And this one faces up. And they're sitting here in a bowl of cool water. You can pressure can meat either by a hot pack or a cold pack method. This is the cold pack method because they're in cool water. Okay, the water is not hot. My canner, the water in my canner is not hot. So it'll be cool meat, cool jars, cool water, and the canner is cool. So we'll put this one down. And this one is up. So that's easy peasy. I now have 5 quart jars with quail in them. And the quail that I have, they are Craternix quail. So they're jumbo quails. They come in 2 sizes. One is the regular size quail. The other one is the jumbo size. And they're a little bit bigger than the regular quail. And they make for a better eating than the smaller, in my opinion, because you get more meat. So what else do we need to do to these quail to can them up? I'm going to take my paper towel. I'm going to wipe off some of this water that I spilled down here. So what else do we need when we're canning quail? Well, you need to make sure that you put some water in here with them. If I had chicken broth, I could put chicken broth in with them, but I don't have any broth. So what I'm going to do is I have some sterilized water. I boiled the water and let it cool to make sure that it's sterilized. And we're going to ladle some water in with this chicken. So, 1 second. This is our pot of water. And I'm going to put water in here to give it all the way to the 1-inch head space. All right. So, as you can see, I've got it right here, just where this lip is on the jar. The water falls right underneath that lip for my 1-inch head space. So that's one. Now, when you're doing a raw pack, if I were doing a different type of meat, I would not do water in here. But because when these are processing in the canner, these small birds don't really give off much juice. And so I fill it up to the 1-inch head space because it's not really going to do much in the way of making its own juice. But since quite a few people asked me about it, I said, well, let me do a video so that I can show you that yes, you can pressure can quail meat. And in terms of seasonings for this quail, because when I do decide to eat the quail, it'll be going with something else, I'm not going to put a lot of seasoning in it. I'm just going to do basic salt and pepper in this water. Once I get everything in here. And that way, when I do open the jars to go with the meal, I can season it the way I want it, or whoever is eating it can season it the way they want it, because it won't be a bunch of other ingredients in it. So I use pickling salt when I'm canning. Get this out of the way. I use pickling salt when I'm canning, and that way the jars will not cloud up once they're canned. So this is the pickling salt that I use. I'm not advocating any particular brand, but I use pickling salt. And for most recipes in quarts, they recommend using a teaspoon of salt if you're going to use salt. But I don't like a lot of salt in my food. So this is a 1/4 teaspoon. So I'll be putting a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in each jar. Okay. And that's all that I'm going to put in there. I don't really need to put any pepper. It's basically a way of putting the quail on my shelf so that it's shelf stable for whenever I need it. And then when I need it, I'll be able to go and open the jar and put it with whatever else I'm eating. So this is what we have here. In this pot, I have my lids. And the lids are slightly warm. They don't recommend anymore that you have to boil your lids, but it's slightly warm so that if you look and see, it's got a ring around it that causes the seal. And if it's slightly warm, I think it helps it seal better. Oh, well, I think what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and wipe the rims. I do have my vinegar here, and I'll put some vinegar on this paper towel and go around the rim of each jar just to make sure that there's nothing there to get in the way that would cause it not to seal. Here we go. And one more. I'll do this one again. Okay. Now we'll do the lids. And this is my little lid lifter. It's a magnet that catches the lids in the water so that I don't have to put my fingers on the bottom of these lids. Okay. And now I got my rings. I'm going to put the rings on here. And the rings just go fingertip tight on here. That's that one. So that's 5 jars ready to load into the canner. Now when I step over here to the canner, the water in the canner is not hot. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to bring you over so that you can see. We'll take this lid off. I've already prepared my pot. I've already put some Vaseline on the rim of the top and through here to keep it from sticking. And I've already checked my vent. I can see through this vent hole, so the vent is not clogged. And I even put a little bit of Vaseline right on the inside of this rim, so that there's no way that it could actually stick rather than come off when I get ready to open it again. Inside here I've got 2 inches of water, which is what is appropriate for my canner. And I also have a 1/4 cup of vinegar in here so that my jars don't cloud up during the canning process. There's also a lid in the bottom of there, so that I'm not putting my jars directly on the bottom of the canner. That lid elevates it just enough to keep it off the bottom. So we're going to put our jars in here. I'll move this over so you can see. we go. That's the first one. And this is what they look like in the jar. My pressure canner can hold 7 quarts, but I have 5, so I still consider that enough jars to run the canner, and it should process fine. And 5. And I always like to position my jars in there so that they're not touching each other. There's a little bit of space between each jar to make sure it's a good airflow. So we're going to put our lid on, and the lid is right over here. Can you see that over there? No? Okay. Here we go. And turn it. Okay. I got it on. It's turned. And we're gonna take these wing nuts and get them open. And you do the wing nuts from the opposite sides when you're putting it together. And the first time that you do it, you don't do it all the way. You just get it enough to kind of secure it in that spot. It's those. And then these last 2. Okay, now that it's slightly holding it down, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll tighten it so that it's nice and secure. Okay, so with these jars, they're going to process in the canner. The total processing time will be 90 minutes because they're quart-sized jars with meat. But before that, I'm going to turn the fire on and let it heat up. And when it heats up, I'll be able to see it through here. It'll start to vent first when it heats, and then I have to let it vent for 10 minutes, and then after it vents for 10 minutes, I'll come back and I'll let it go up to the 10 mark here for the pressure for my area. And once it goes up to pressure, then I will put the weight on. And then with the weight on, it will process for 90 minutes. So I'll bring you back when it's done. Well, we're back and everything is done now. The quail have processed for 90 minutes. Everything is fine in this container. I want to show you what the quail look like now that I'm gonna take them out and they're done. So remember, we put 5 jars in here. This is the first one. quail meat is done. And it's bubbling over there. Second one. Number 3. Four. And 5. I've heard some of them pop already, so they're starting to seal. They will stay on this counter overnight, and tomorrow I'll come and I'll wipe the jars down and label everything and put them on my shelf. But yes, the people who have asked if you can pressure can quail, you can. Again, it is not a tested recipe by the USDA, but this is how I can them, and I've had good success with them. So you make your decision as to whether or not you choose to can your quail, but I have been canning mine with no problem. Well, this is Henry B 723. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Have a great day. Bye-bye.